Hello everyone, this is 3D Printed Animatronic Creature Part 32, Sculpting Canvas Rim. I hope y'all are doing well. I'm just going to show you what I've been working on. This is just making adjustments to the sculpting canvas that where the creature is going to be sculpted on. And there's this rim on the chest piece that I want the silicone to make a flange or a rim or a fold over kind of a locking mechanism for the skin to just roll over. That way it'll just be locked in place there. And to make this so-called flange, it's already on the core, and when I pour the silicone it will go underneath there and it will be hugging that underneath part of the chest piece. Well, I'm trying to do this part that way I can connect it easily when I make the sculpture, and that way it won't be me trying to go underneath it and remove any artifacts inside this so-called base plate. So what I did is I kind of made a partial rim around this, and these red parts here are the reservoirs for the silicone. Now they're not on the core, but they're on this part, and whatever is on the sculpting part is going to be transferred to the mold. And when we pour the skin, that's going to leave a space there for the silicone to travel through when I pour the silicone for the skin. But that's after we make the silicone mold itself. It's considered like a spacer. So whatever is on this sculpting base or base core of the creature here is going to be transferred to the silicone mold itself. But even these pieces here, I'm going to have to, connect to the creature so we can get this molded. So what I'm doing here, I'm just kind of trying to match the height of this rim and matching it to this rim. And so people might think this is overkill, but I'm a planner, and this is maybe a couple of $100 worth of silicone, and I don't want any failures, and this is just part of it. I enjoy mold making. It's an art form, and I like being kind of precise with it. But anything that I add on here is going to be the reservoir for the silicone when I pour into this. And anything on the inside of this needs to be removed, so there's any kind of a hole or anything as you see here, or a bent hole or a pore hole. But all this needs to just be sealed up watertight. And sometimes when you're doing this kind of design work and you get to thinking, now, do I need this, or is this right? Is this going to work? You get kind of you're seeing things like from the inside when usually it's on the outside that you're working on. But as far as doing this mesh here, and I'm adding these vertices and these these lines and triangles and things, it may be harder for me to do it later if I had to do the rim when the sculpture is done. So I'm going to try to add this to this base plate here so I don't have to do it later. Now this base plate here is a sculpting core, I guess you would call it, and these reservoirs need to be on the thick so to give me an airflow and a pore flow, but this has got to be connected to the rim so we can pour the silicone. And I'm just trying to get everything pretty much precise to where I can cut this away with scissors as far as trimming the skin after this has been done. What I'm doing here is just really connecting the reservoir to the rim itself. That way it will get a good pour and airflow as we pour the silicone, and everything that's inside this mesh is going to be removed so it'll be watertight. And then now I'm going to just copy half of it, and I've only worked on half, and that way I can just mirror it and flip it on the red axis and then connect the two pieces together. But on mirroring, you have to be careful because it can be off a little bit, but you just have to make sure that it's cut correctly, and that's why this line is always center. And then I can just clean it up and connect the two pieces really together. And there's some places that I might have to change, but anything that I change on this green area will, you know, be different in the silicone. And I'm just trying to avoid, because this is pretty much the bottom part of the key of the mole. But I did all this mirror by bringing in the piece inside another SketchUp window. That way I'll have, I guess, more memory to work with. As you see here, I made the measurements 250 by 250, and so it's correct. So it matches up to the original core base plate itself. So now I have a new base plate for the sculpture itself, and with a flange already there. So now I don't have to worry about, all I need to do is just, when the sculpture is done, is connect it to this flange. But first I'm going to take the very first sculpting canvas here, and I'm just going to remove some of these faces and vertices. You can do this mesh editing like you see here I'm doing it in SketchUp. But once again, I like SketchUp because of the measurement. It's more CAD-like. But you can do it in Blender, and you can also do the editing in ZBrush. But I'm just removing these vertices and kind of keep it like in a mirror shape, and I'm trying to get it really close to that new edge or that new flange area. That way, when the sculpting's done on this canvas, I can just easily transfer it, and more likely it will go into Blender to do that, because SketchUp won't tolerate too much as far as higher poly. But I mean, it's getting pretty close, and maybe if I updated my computer, I could probably handle a lot more. But what I'm doing here is I'm doing a coloring to where I've made the I guess the border where I'm cutting, and I do a copy and I mirror it, and then I just kind of see a guide what to remove to keep this in its right shape. And then I'm going to do the back of it here and just remove it and kind of round off these shoulder areas. And then I'm going to bring this back into Blender, and that way I can, in the sculpting in Blender, and kind of bring this closer to that flange. You know, I hope that when you see this, that this shows you that you could make your own animatronic. You could design your own creature, your own teeth. I mean, it's a process, and it can be somewhat tedious, but yet, you know, that way that any kind of a creature that you would make, you could make it become alive, kind of like, you know, Dr. Frankenstein. But we can always enjoy making creatures and animatronics and things, and you know, the sky's the limit. This all depends on how big our printers can get that are dependable and accurate enough to do it. But as you see here, I have this canvas pretty much done, but I'm still wanting to bring it into Blender so I can bring in that flange of the canvas closer to the new flange on the base plate. So I'm going to import the base plate with the flange, the new flange on it, into Blender, and then I'll just get rid of the old part, and then that way I can just kind of show you here is when I bring in the core into the new uh, base plate here, and you can kind of tell that it's matching pretty good, but the only ones that are not having any kind of reaction is one with the reservoirs in it, because that's the space where the silicone's going to be poured in. So I got the canvas in place, and I'm just going to slowly just kind of sculpt it close as I can to the new flange rim area, and that way it'll be easy after the sculpture is done. I can connect vertices and faces to this empty space rim here, instead of doing like a bowling or a join, or that way I don't have to do any kind of cleanup or of any sort later on. And so here's the new canvas, and here's the old canvas. So now I'm just going to let you see how close I got it now by just doing that. And a lot of this doesn't take a whole lot of time to do. It might seem like, even though I might have shot maybe 90 minutes of footage, and some I might have forgot, or just because you're just only seeing roughly less than 15 minutes of this process, but it doesn't take a whole lot of time to do this. Now the canvas is done, so now I can resculpt or just start sculpting a new creature on this canvas. And as you see here, here's the older one, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one, and then I can start fresh and have a new creature, and more likely that's what you will be seeing on the next video. I hope y'all like. Thank you for everything, and the subscribers and the comments. Later.